David and Patrick grew up in Chelmsley Wood, a large housing estate of working-class families on the edge of Birmingham. On the evening of Boxing Day 1996, best friends Patrick Warren and David Spencer left their Chelmsley Wood residences to play outside. Patrick left on his brand new bicycle, which had been a Christmas present, while David was spotted on foot. The boys had been spotted by a police officer earlier that afternoon, playing with other children in Meriden Park, where they had been warned by the officer not to play on the frozen pond. After returning home, they told their parents of their plans to visit one of Patrick's brothers that evening. The last sighting of them was at 12:45 by a petrol station attendant who they asked for a packet of biscuits and were seen walking away towards Chelmsley Wood shopping centre. Patrick's brand new red Apollo bicycle was found abandoned behind the petrol station near the bins, although the police did not realise that it was his until several weeks later. Senior police officers told the media at the time there was no reason to believe the boys had come to any harm, and local reporters were clear police regarded the boys as runaways. Professor David Wilson, a criminologist who studied the police's initial response to the boys' disappearance, concluded that David and Patrick's working-class background affected how their case was handled. The boys' disappearance received little media attention beyond the local press. Following their disappearance, the friends became the first children to appear on milk cartons in Iceland stores as part of a campaign by the National Missing Persons Helpline. Just a few days after the boys disappeared, 17-year-old Nicola Dixon was found raped and murdered in a graveyard 8 miles away in Sutton Coldfield. Though her killer was found and convicted, the police say that police resources and media attention between Christmas 1996 and New Year's Day 1997 was dominated by the Dixon case. On the 20th of April 1968, Roy Tuttle, aged 14, left school at 3:30, dressed in the Kingston Grammar School uniform of a pink blazer with grey stripes. He caught the bus to Chessington, where as usual he got off and attempted to hitchhike home to Brockham. Later, a bus ticket was found in his pocket, confirming that he had made the trip. Roy's parents, Dennis and Hilary, notified Surrey police when he failed to arrive home that evening. The police took a missing persons report but did not begin investigating until the following day. The body of the schoolboy was found by a policeman 3 days later outside the gates of Cherkley Court in Mickleham. He had been strangled and sexually assaulted. The only information that police learned was that a bus driver had been seen talking to a schoolboy in a silver-grey Austin Westminster Mark II car. The bus driver stopped on the Bridge Road roundabout and found that his bay was occupied by an Austin Westminster. The driver was leaning across the front and was speaking to a schoolboy. This resulted in 18,000 drivers of Austin Westminsters being traced and interviewed. The driver was described as a short, stocky man with whitish grey hair. The same car had been reported seen near where the body was dumped. Samples taken from Roy's body and clothing were analysed at the time, but provided no evidence except that the suspect was either A or O blood group. Scotland Yard was called in to assist in the investigation, but there were no breaks in the case. The investigation remained open, and detectives held the belief that the perpetrator was a repeat offender and the murder was not a random act. In the 1970s, investigators travelled to Scotland to interview a man named Brian Lunn Field from Solihull, West Midlands, who had been sentenced to 2 years in prison for the attempted abduction and indecent assault of a 14-year-old boy in Aberdeen. In December 1996, a partial DNA sample was recovered from samples taken from Roy's trousers, which had been kept in a freezer. In the year 2000, a match was made of the DNA sample from the Tuttle case, which was matched to Field, who had DNA taken when arrested for drunk driving in September 1999 in Birmingham. Field had been working as a gardener. Surrey police set up surveillance on Field. His criminal record included a 1969 fine for gross indecency, the 1970s assault in Aberdeen, and 2 sentences in the 1980s of 4 years each for 2 counts of unlawful sex with underage boys and falsely imprisoning 2 teenage boys. On the 21st of February 2001, police arrested Field at his flat in Birmingham. He was held in police custody, during which time his detention was extended for more than the initial 24 hours in order to assist the investigation. Field denied knowing Roy or having anything to do with his death, and whilst admitting to his historic sexual offences against boys, said he had put that behaviour behind him. The following day, Field confessed in detail to the abduction, rape and murder of Tuttle. He said that he'd seen the boy get off a bus and phone for a lift, and that he had picked him up. He then drove the boy to a lay-by where he sexually assaulted him over the front seat, and when he finished, panicked. Field drove to a second lay-by and strangled Roy by wrapping a rope around his neck twice. He kept the boy's body in his car boot for several days before dumping him in Woodland. When, in 2001, the murderer was finally convicted, it was revealed that he had a white Mini, and not an Austin Westminster that police had originally been investigating. On the 15th of November 2001, 65-year-old Field was sentenced to life in prison. He pleaded guilty to murder but not sexual assault. Tuttle's parents did not live to see the murderer sentenced. Until Field was convicted, Roy's murder had been the only unsolved child murder case in Surrey. Field became the prime suspect in the Warren and Spencer case after his conviction in 2001. Warren and Spencer had last been seen close to Field's home. Field had worked as a self-employed gardener in the area for a number of local families, had access to open ground in the area, and was a regular drinker in pubs close to the boys' home. Field had received 6 previous convictions for sexual offences against boys, including a 1986 conviction for abducting 2 boys, aged 13 and 16, in his car with the intent of raping them. After offering the boys a lift, he threatened them with a wheel brace and told them to remove their clothes, but the boys were able to escape after jumping from the moving car. It has been speculated that Field was driving around the area of the boys' last sighting in a van on the night of their disappearance, and that he was doing so under the influence of alcohol. This was notable as Field was known to have turned violent when drunk, and that he committed most of his crimes while intoxicated. Field himself said after confessing to Roy's murder that alcohol was a trigger for him to commit criminal acts. It has also been suggested Field had been seen speaking to the boys days before their disappearance, suggesting that he may have groomed them in the lead-up to their last sighting. This could explain why no one heard screams or a struggle on the night of the boys' disappearance, as they may have already known Field and got into his vehicle willingly. In 2006, officers dug up a field nearby in Old Damson Lane in a bid to find clues, but abandoned their search several weeks later after finding nothing of significance. It was 600 yards away from an earlier police search near the Jaguar Land Rover plant that workmen discovered human remains in 2005. West Midlands Police cordoned off the area following the grim discovery and conducted a fingertip search of the scene. The remains were subjected to forensic analysis, but police later revealed they were not a match for the missing pair.